The rain fell in steady sheets across the wrought iron gates of Whitmore Manor, each droplet catching the amber glow of the gas lamps that lined the entrance. Sarah Martinez pulled her thin cardigan tighter around her shoulders as she stood before the imposing gates, her worn sneakers already soaked through from the walk up the long, winding driveway. The mansion beyond the gates looked like something from another world. Tall windows glowed with warm light, and she could see the shadows of elegant furniture and crystal chandeliers through the glass. The perfectly manicured gardens stretched out on either side, even in the rain maintaining their pristine appearance. Everything about this place spoke of wealth and comfort, two things that had become distant memories in Sarah's life. She hadn't eaten in 2 days. The last of her money had gone to pay for her grandmother's medication, and now she stood here, swallowing her pride, hoping against hope that someone in this grand house might have mercy on a stranger. Her hands trembled slightly, whether from cold, hunger, or nerves, she couldn't tell anymore. The past year had been a series of unfortunate events that seemed to cascade one after another. First, her grandmother had fallen ill, requiring expensive treatments that insurance barely covered. Then Sarah had lost her job at the local diner when it closed down due to financial troubles. Her savings had disappeared quickly, eaten up by medical bills and basic necessities. Now, at 24 years old, she found herself standing in the rain, contemplating something she never thought she would have to do. Taking a deep breath, Sarah pressed the button on the intercom system mounted beside the gates. The sound echoed through the speaker, and she waited, her heart pounding in her chest. After what felt like an eternity, a crisp male voice answered. "Good evening. How may I help you?" Sarah's voice caught in her throat for a moment before she managed to speak. I'm sorry to bother you so late. My name is Sarah Martinez. I was wondering if perhaps you might have some work I could do. Cleaning, maybe. I haven't eaten in a while, and I thought." She trailed off, feeling foolish and desperate. There was a long pause on the other end of the intercom. Sarah closed her eyes, preparing for rejection, for the gates to remain locked and the voice to politely but firmly send her away. Instead, she heard the mechanical whir of the gate system activating, and slowly, the ornate iron barriers began to swing open. "Please come up to the front door," the voice said, gentler now. "Watch your step on the wet stones." Sarah walked slowly up the curved driveway, taking in the grandeur around her. Even in the rain, she could see the careful attention to detail in every aspect of the property. The hedges were perfectly trimmed, the stone pathway was smooth and well maintained, and the fountain in the center of the circular drive continued to flow despite the weather, its water mixing with the raindrops. The front door was massive, made of dark wood with intricate carvings and brass hardware that gleamed even in the dim light. Before she could reach for the ornate door knocker, the door swung open, revealing a man in an expensive black suit. He was tall, probably in his early 30s, with dark hair that was slightly damp as if he had just come in from the rain himself. His eyes were a deep brown, and they studied her with an intensity that made her feel suddenly self-conscious about her bedraggled appearance. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The man stood perfectly still in the doorway, his face registering something Sarah couldn't quite identify. Surprise, maybe. Recognition. But that was impossible, she had never seen this man before in her life. She would have remembered someone like him. "I'm sorry," Sarah said finally, breaking the silence. "I know I look terrible. I've been walking for a while, and the rain." She gestured helplessly at her drenched clothes and disheveled hair. The man seemed to shake himself out of whatever trance had held him. No, please don't apologize. I'm Marcus Whitmore. This is my home. Please, come inside out of the rain." Sarah hesitated for a moment at the threshold. The interior of the house was even more magnificent than she had imagined from the outside. The foyer alone was larger than most apartments, with a grand staircase that curved up to a second-floor landing, and a crystal chandelier that cast rainbow patterns on the polished marble floors. Persian rugs in deep blues and golds were scattered across the space, and oil paintings in gilded frames lined the walls. "I don't want to track water on your beautiful floors," Sarah said, looking down at her soaked clothing. Marcus waved dismissively. "The floors will dry. Your health is more important." He closed the door behind her and gestured toward a sitting room to the right. "Please, let's get you somewhere warm." The sitting room was elegant but comfortable, with a fire crackling in a stone fireplace and plush armchairs arranged around a low coffee table. Marcus indicated one of the chairs, and Sarah sank into it gratefully, feeling the warmth from the fire begin to seep into her chilled bones. You said you were looking for work? Marcus asked, settling into the chair across from her. And that you haven't eaten in a while. Sarah felt heat rise in her cheeks. I'm sorry. I know this is highly irregular. I wouldn't normally. I mean, I've never done anything like this before. But I've been having some financial difficulties, and I thought perhaps you might need someone to help with cleaning or garden work, or anything really. I'm a hard worker, I promise. She took a shaky breath. I just need a chance to earn enough for a meal. Marcus leaned forward, his elbows on his knees, studying her face with that same intense look from before. Sarah Martinez, he said slowly, as if testing the name. Have we met before? There's something familiar about you. Sarah shook her head. I don't think so. I would remember meeting you, Mr. Whitmore. I've lived in this town my whole life, but I don't exactly move in the same circles as. She gestured around the opulent room. Please, call me Marcus, he said. And you'd be surprised. Sometimes our paths cross in unexpected ways. He stood up abruptly. But first things first, when did you last eat? 2 days ago, Sarah admitted quietly, not meeting his eyes. Marcus was quiet for a long moment, and when Sarah looked up, she saw something like pain flash across his features. Wait here, he said. I'll be right back. He disappeared through a doorway, and Sarah could hear him moving around in what she assumed was the kitchen. She took the opportunity to really look around the room, trying to process the surreal turn her evening had taken. A few hours ago, she had been sitting in her small apartment, staring at an empty refrigerator and an overdue rent notice, wondering how she had let her life spiral so far out of control. Now she was sitting in a mansion, waiting for a millionaire to return with food. The sound of approaching footsteps brought her back to the present. Marcus returned carrying a tray laden with what looked like enough food for several people. There was a bowl of soup that smelled like heaven, fresh bread with butter, a selection of cheeses and fruits, and a steaming mug of what appeared to be hot chocolate. I wasn't sure what you might like, Marcus said, setting the tray on the coffee table in front of her. Please, eat as much as you want. Sarah stared at the feast before her, tears welling up in her eyes. I can't accept this without working for it, she said. It's too much. I asked for the chance to work for a meal, not for charity. Marcus sat back down across from her. Then consider this an advance on your wages. I do, in fact, have work you could do, if you're interested. What kind of work? Sarah asked, picking up the spoon and dipping it into the soup. The first taste was so good it was almost overwhelming after 2 days without food. I have a large house, as you can see, and while I have a cleaning service that comes twice a week, there are always small tasks that need attention. Organizing, light cleaning, perhaps some help with correspondence. Nothing too strenuous. Marcus paused, watching her eat. But I have to ask you something, and I want you to think carefully before you answer. Are you absolutely certain we haven't met before? Sarah swallowed a spoonful of soup and considered the question seriously. I'm certain, she said finally. Although, you do seem familiar somehow. But I think I would remember if we had actually met. Marcus nodded slowly. What's your grandmother's name? The question was so unexpected that Sarah nearly choked on her soup. My grandmother. Her name is Elena Martinez. Why do you ask? Something shifted in Marcus's expression, a dawning recognition that made his eyes widen slightly. Elena Martinez, who worked as a housekeeper. Yes, Sarah said, setting down her spoon and looking at him with growing confusion. She worked for several families in town over the years. How did you? She worked here, Marcus said quietly. For my family, when I was young. She was our housekeeper for almost 10 years, until I went away to college. She was like family to us. Sarah felt the world tilt slightly around her. That's impossible. Grandmother never mentioned working for anyone named Whitmore. My father's name was Robert Whitmore, but everyone called him Rob. My mother was Catherine. Does that sound familiar? Sarah's breath caught in her throat. Mr. Rob and Miss Catherine, she whispered. Grandmother talked about them all the time when I was little. She said they were the kindest people she ever worked for, and that they had a son who was going to change the world someday. She looked at Marcus with new eyes, seeing now the familiar features that had nagged at her. You're the little boy in the pictures. Pictures. Grandmother kept pictures from all the families she worked for, but there were more from your house than anywhere else. Pictures of birthday parties, Christmas mornings, family vacations. She said your mother always insisted she be included in family photos because she was part of the family. Marcus leaned back in his chair, a smile playing at the corners of his mouth. I remember her bringing you to work sometimes during school holidays. You were so small, maybe 5 or 6 years old. You used to follow me around the house, asking a million questions about everything. The memories came flooding back to Sarah then, fragments of recollection that she had forgotten over the years. Playing in the garden of a big house, a boy teaching her to feed the fish in a pond, sitting in a grand kitchen while her grandmother baked cookies. I remember, she said softly. I remember you showing me the secret passage behind the bookshelf in the library. It's still there, Marcus said, his voice warm with nostalgia. I used to hide there when I didn't want to do my homework. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, both processing the strange coincidence that had brought them together again after so many years. Sarah continued eating, but more slowly now, her hunger being replaced by a different kind of fullness, the fullness of connection, of belonging somewhere again. How is Elena? Marcus asked finally. I always meant to stay in touch after I left for college, but you know how it is. Life gets busy, and before you know it, years have passed. Sarah's expression grew somber. She's sick. Cancer. That's actually why I'm in this situation. The medical bills have been overwhelming, and I lost my job a few months ago. I've been trying to take care of her and keep up with everything, but it's been. She trailed off, not wanting to burden him with all the details. Marcus was quiet for a long moment, his hands clasped in front of him. She was always there for us, he said finally. When my mother got sick, Elena stayed late every night to help take care of her. When she died, Elena held me while I cried. She was more than an employee, she was family. She loved you all very much, Sarah said. She still talks about you sometimes, wondering how you're doing, whether you ever got married, if you're happy. I'd like to see her again, if she's well enough for visitors. She would love that. She's been having a hard time lately, and I think seeing you would brighten her spirits more than you know. Marcus stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the rain that continued to fall steadily. Sarah, he said without turning around, I have a proposition for you. It's not charity, and it's not pity. It's a business arrangement that would benefit both of us. Sarah set down her mug of hot chocolate and waited for him to continue. I need someone to help me organize this house. It's too big for me alone, and while the cleaning service takes care of the basic maintenance, there are so many things that need attention. Old papers to sort through, rooms that need organizing, correspondence that's piling up. It's a full-time position with a good salary, and it comes with the small apartment above the garage if you're interested. Sarah felt her heart begin to race. Marcus, I can't accept. He turned around to face her. It's not charity. I genuinely need the help, and you're the perfect person for the job. You know this house, you have experience with this kind of work through Elena, and... He paused, smiling slightly. And I trust you. That's not something I can say about many people. But the salary you're talking about, it's probably more than I've ever made. Elena helped raise me, Marcus said simply. She was there for my family when we needed her. Now I want to be there for hers. It's not charity, it's family taking care of family. Sarah felt tears welling up in her eyes again, but this time they were tears of relief and gratitude rather than desperation. I don't know what to say. Say yes. Say you'll help me turn this big, empty house into a home again. Sarah looked around the elegant room, remembering the fragments of happy memories from her childhood visits here. She thought about her grandmother, lying in a hospital bed, worrying about medical bills and her granddaughter's future. She thought about the past year of struggle and uncertainty, and the hope that was beginning to bloom in her chest. Yes, she said softly. Yes, I'll say yes. Marcus's smile was radiant. Good. We'll start tomorrow, but tonight, you should get some rest. Let me show you to the apartment upstairs. It's fully furnished, and there should be some clothes in the closet that might fit you. They belong to my cousin who stayed here last year. As Sarah followed Marcus through the house toward the apartment that would be her new home, she marveled at the strange turns that life could take. This morning, she had woken up, wondering how she would survive another day. Tonight, She was walking through a mansion that held fragments of her childhood memories, offered a job by a man who had once been a playmate in her grandmother's stories. The apartment above the garage was small but comfortable, with a kitchenette, a cozy living area, and a bedroom with a window that looked out over the gardens. It felt like a palace compared to the cramped, cold apartment she had been struggling to afford. "The key is on the kitchen counter," Marcus said from the doorway. "Take tomorrow morning to settle in, and we can start going through things in the afternoon." "And Sarah?" He paused as she turned to look at him. "Welcome home." After he left, Sarah sat on the small couch and looked around her new space. Outside, the rain continued to fall, but it no longer felt cold and threatening. Instead, it sounded peaceful, like a gentle lullaby washing away the hardships of the past year. She thought about her grandmother, and how surprised Elena would be to learn that Sarah was living and working in the house where she had spent so many happy years. She thought about the strange coincidences that had led her to ring the doorbell of this particular mansion, and the kindness of a man who could have easily turned her away but instead chose to welcome her home. Tomorrow, she would call the hospital and tell her grandmother the good news. Tomorrow, she would start her new job and begin building a new life. But tonight, for the first time in months, Sarah fell asleep without worrying about where her next meal would come from, or whether she would have a roof over her head in the morning. Sometimes, she thought as sleep took her, the universe has a way of bringing the right people together at exactly the right moment. Sometimes, asking for help doesn't make you weak, it makes you brave enough to accept the kindness that's been waiting for you all along.